Hello friends and Happy New Year! Today is January 1st and my office is a total wreck, but we're not going to worry too much about that because today we're going to focus on my shelves and reorganize all of my books. So this is the current state of affair. On this side are my read books and then my language books, and all of this side is TBR, which is a lot. So as you can see, this side is starting to overflow quite a bit. This one is quite busy as well. There is paperwork on the right side that should not be here. And then this shelf is empty because that was my end of the year TBR shelf, which I completed. I read all the books on that shelf, which I'm very happy with. So this means that we have a little bit of room here. And then going down. The problem though is that I recently brought all the books back from my parents' house, and so I have about 40 books here that are part of my TBR that I need to fit on that bookcase. And then this is my Christmas book haul that I also need to fit in there. So I like to have read and TBR separated on my shelves, but we're gonna have to shuffle things around. So kind of look at things to unhaul or to move to the other bookshelf in the other part of the house. I was also thinking about a slightly different system for the TBR. I recently watched a shelf reorganization video from Freshly Read Books, and the way she used to organize her books was chronologically from the date of purchase, and that really kind of tickled something in my brain, so I think I want to try that. Currently my TBR is just separated between fiction, non-fiction, and then this shelf was kind of the priority read. So I still want to keep that priority shelf for my 26 to 2026 list that we will pick together in another video. Apart from that, I kind of like this idea of organizing books from the date I've gotten them. 2025 and 2024 will be easy because I tracked all the books that I acquired. Before that is going to be a bit trickier, so it might be kind of broader categories, less finely refined, and just we'll see how that goes. And I will likely have to make more room on my read bookcase, probably for the priority shelf, so that I can have all the rest of the TBR on one bookcase. So we'll see. To start with, I will remove all the decorations on the shelves and then probably look for books that I already know that I want to unhaul, and then put everything down and have a little bit of a cleaning because I think it's quite dusty as well. So let's get to work. This is the current state of affairs. The bookcases are empty and clean, and the floor is lava. Okay, we have our 2025 shelf. Few books from 2024, and also I'm having a dilemma. I wonder if I want to mix in my books about writing or if I want to keep them on a separate shelf, because I have a bunch of those and a lot of them I need to read. So we will see. I'm keeping them apart for now, and we will see later if I want to mix them in. And as I go, I will probably find the books that are missing from 2024. Okay, so now comes the fun part. I don't have clear, complete data for the years before 2024. So it's gonna be a bit of a reconstruction game, figuring out when I got whatever books. And sorry for the noise in the background. My husband is working on the living room that we're currently renovating. All right, so let's figure it out with all the books that are left, and it's quite a lot. Okay, so this is where we are after the magic discovery that I have a lot of history on Amazon going back to 2007, which is mind-boggling. We're just gonna ignore that. But thanks to that history, I was able to retrace some of my book purchases for a few years. So it's only a few. I still have all of this and all of this mess basically to organize. These are like the writing books I was talking about earlier. So a good chunk, maybe a third, I would say, I was able to trace back to a year. So I'm making notes and slowly making progress, and now I'm hoping to somewhat reconstruct my book buying history based on where I remember getting the book and what period of my life it was. So a bit of detective work now. Okay, so this is the current progress. We're doing good. I only have this little section left to sort. I've been at it for 3 hours now and I'm getting pretty tired, so I think I need a break. I'm gonna have a snack and I think I'm gonna leave that for a little. I mean, I will see how I feel after my snack, but I might put that aside and then start filling the red shelf. I put a little poll on my YouTube community tab to get people's thought about having a separate writing book section, and so far it's unanimous. Yes, put them apart, which actually works well for me because this is already almost full, so I think it might work with this. Might be slightly tight in some sections, but I think it would be perfect or close to. So having the writing books separate actually really helps because I don't think they would fit. I might need more than one shelf for them actually. And I would also like to have my 26 or 2026 shelf. I was thinking about having a shelf for books I want to reread and then a shelf for my favorite books, something like that. So we will see how that works. But for now, I need some food. The break's over, and after reflection, I think it's best if I hold off on that last little pile of TBR books, because when I'm gonna be pulling out my 26 for 2026 list, then I will have more room on the shelves, so I think it makes sense. So I'm gonna move on to this bookcase, and I think what I'm gonna do is gonna be favorites on top, then the books that I want to reread here. This is going to be the shelf for my 26 list, and then what's left will be for writing books and any space left for other random books that I've read. Overall, if I want to keep one shelf for my 26 to 2026 list, I don't have that much space left, and I have all those books. I think definitely some of them will be moving to another room, but I would still try to avoid having too many books around like everywhere, and try to keep them rather together as much as I can. So I might keep a small section of books I want to reread on this shelf because there is room, and then just use those two to put as many books I want to keep with me as possible, and the rest will have to move. Okay, so this is where we are landing tonight. I still have this small pile bottom here that needs to go onto the to be read bookcase, but again, once I pick my 26 for 2026 I will have room for it, because now we are pretty much maxed out, because I don't have any more books from 2024 or 2025, so everywhere else is full. And then on the red side I've put kind of big books here and some paperwork. Those are my two shelves of books about writing, a little bit about translation, and this corner here are books that I would like to reread kind of soonish. Here we have some decor that doesn't fit anymore, because I mean it would fit, but I kind of like it the way it is with very minimal decor. So we will see what I do, because then I don't have anywhere else to put my little knickknacks and souvenirs and stuff. But I like the minimalist vibe of the, well, can you call it minimalist? But just like almost only books of the bookshelf. And here we went for aesthetics. So kind of the nice hardback and some favorite books at the top. And I wanted to have a little bit of wiggle room, so I'm displaying Facebreaker because the cover is just gorgeous and I adored that book. So that's where we are ending the work tonight. I'm exhausted. It was a lot of effort, but I'm very pleased with how things are looking. I asked in the community tab if you would all want to get a shelf tour at the same time as I'm doing this reorganization video, and apparently you do. So let's have a closer look at my shelves. Let's start at the bottom. This is too low for me to set up a tripod or anything, so we're gonna do handheld and hopefully that doesn't move too much. So to start with, here we have this photo album which encompasses the first 2 years of my husband and I's relationship. And you can see that we started dating in 2010, so it's been almost 16 years now, which sounds kind of mad to me. But yeah, we've been together for a while. This is all my paperwork. I'm super excited that I just yesterday finished kind of digitizing and organizing everything of the physical paperwork, so I'm very, very happy with myself. These are 2 copies of a novel that I wrote many years ago and submitted to publishers. It never got picked up, but I still have those old copies as memory. Then we have a few big books that don't fit on any other bookshelf. All of those are photo albums from trips I took and kind of nice memories. There are also a few magazines that I contributed to as a writer or an editor. And then we have a few more large books that don't really fit anywhere else. Next, we have the writing books and research books. And then this little section is books that I want to reread next to my friendship bracelets from the Taylor Swift Eras Tour. This is the story of Helen Keller, who was a little girl born blind, deaf, and mute as well. And this is kind of a children's version of her biography that I read as a kid. Loved it, and I've wanted to learn sign language since then. So I would like to reread this kind of childhood favorite. 4,000 Weeks. I love this book. It's a non-fiction. I would love to reread. It's kind of time management for mortals or something, and it's about coming to terms with the fact that you don't have enough time in your life to do everything and being fine with that. What else? This is probably my favorite, or at least one of my favorite non-fiction books. I really want to reread it at some point. This is the second shelf of my books about writing, and those are the books that I haven't read yet. So this first one is a gift I received from Ellen at the Ellen May Book Club channel for my birthday. So thank you again, Ellen. I'm looking forward to diving into it. Those two I got at a writing conference in Stockholm. I have a vlog of that conference. It was lovely. I love to go there. Then quite a few books that I purchased this year. Some books that I purchased while I was in Sweden, so between 2016 and 2019. All those books are from the time when I was doing a creative writing master's. So they're a bit old. Some are quite technical. This one is a brick. It's a kind of sociology text about writers in France and basically the difficulty for writers to make a living with their work. And then we have some very old books that I got many years ago. This one I got when I was in Australia, which was in 2010, 2011. So yeah, I also ordered them in chronological order, like the rest of the shelves, but again, they're like a separate section. This is a cute gift I received from my sister for a birthday, I think, a few years ago, and I love pickles, so I really love it. And then here are a few books about translation. Next, we have my 26 for 2026 bookshelf that you've seen a lot and in all its glory and details in a previous video. This is a little snowball I got on a trip in February last year. I also have a vlog for this. Loved it. I spent the night at the top of the Pyrenees at the observatory. This was incredible, like a life bucket list item. We have a cute capybara that I won at a fair last summer at my sister's place. And then little souvenirs from my dad. I love this. It's called bulle d'amour, so like love bubbles in French, and it's kind of a physics trick. With the warmth of your hand, the liquid goes up, and I think it's so fun. I love it. Next, we have a shelf of pretty paperbacks. Here I have tucked away some books from my childhood. Blancheline, obviously they're in French, and a book about platypus. This book I got in Australia and it felt meant for me. This is a book about a woman who goes to India to learn Hindi. I've also studied Hindi and the subtitle is like living in translation or something, and I was also obsessed with translation. This is a book that I wanted to translate into French, but sadly the author passed away and I was not able to find out who were the people who owned the translation right. I contacted the publisher, they were not able to help me. I was very frustrated, but I did translate an extract for my creative writing masters and I loved it. I think it was a lot of fun. I just love translation so much. Circe by Madeline Miller was one of my favorite books of last year, I think. This is the gorgeous anniversary edition. I think it's one of the most beautifully written books ever. I loved it so much. Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom that I read this year, a new favorite duology, loved it to bits. And then Faithbreaker, I will have to speak about in another video. I think this cover is gorgeous, love the trilogy as well. And then the top shelf of the read books. We have the Hunger Games series that I read for the first time this year. Absolutely loved it. I can't believe that I waited this long to read it, but I think it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Next, this is the Mirror Visitor series that I read in French. The first book is one of my all-time favorite books. I don't think it holds up to the whole series, but I'm slowly rereading it with Steph Morgan. So it's also nice because the first time I completely binged it, I read the whole series in just a few days. So it's nice to take my time a little bit more and also to have someone to discuss it as we go. So I'm curious to see how I feel about the last book compared to the first time I read it. This is a little pink platypus. I told you I love platypuses. From when I was a baby, I love this thing so much. Cemetery Boys was my favorite fiction of last year. I read it for November and I absolutely loved it. The audiobook is fantastic and I'm so excited for the sequel that's coming up in September. And then I also read V. Schwab's The Invisible Life of Audrey LaRue with the cat bite earlier this year and loved it. I initially read it as an ebook and I needed a physical copy on my shelves. And then at the very top, you have this huge whale plushie that's also a gift from my sister. I call her the Bushka and I love her so much. She's so fluffy and soft, but she's also quite big, so I had to find a spot for her to live permanently. Moving on to the next bookcase, we have all my books from 2025 that I haven't read yet. I won't go into too much details here because I will do a book haul very soon for the last few books I got. This is Boris, my little dinosaur plushie, and then my collection of bookmarks. I got quite a few new ones since I did the bookmark tag, so maybe I can show you some. While reorganizing my shelves, I found quite a few that were lost in the pages, like this one from a travel bookshop in Rennes, which is a city in France. This one from Australia. And then, yeah, plenty of others. Those I got while I was in Prague. This I got at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris for the Sager-Sergent exhibition. This is Mr. Pozzi, one of his most famous paintings. This one I got in Milan. This one I got at a gorgeous library in Paris. So many bookmarks. This one is from Portugal. So yeah, I have plenty of bookmarks, much more than I had before. Yeah, I think it's a really nice thing to collect when I travel. It's cheap, doesn't take any space. So yeah, I think it's a good option. Okay, now you can have a more stable view. Those are all the books from 2024 that I still need to read, apart from a few writing books that I've showed on the other shelf. And then I think there are like maybe 4 or 5 books that I'm not counting as TBR because they're kind of more aesthetics books, like coffee table books or things like that. I'm so pleased because in 2024 I had acquired 100 physical books, which is madness when you see that my shelves are already quite full. And so that's what sparked this idea for me to do a book low by year in 2025. Now, having ordered everything by the time I purchased it, I'm so happy to see that I have not that many compared to the 100. I don't have that many left to read, and I checked my spreadsheet for the stats for 2024 to look into it. And so of the 100 books that I acquired, like the physical one I acquired in 2024, I read half already. I read about 50 books, and I have about 10 that I've DNF'd, and then 10 that I didn't really count again because they were like kind of coffee table books or books, my books in foreign languages. I don't really count them as a TBR in the same way because I'm not as fluent in the other language as I am in English, so it's more of an exercise in practicing the languages. So they are in their own separate category. And so of the 100, I have 32 left to read, so just under 1/3, which I'm quite happy with. This thing here is a 3D puzzle. It's very fragile. I need to glue it together because it keeps kind of having parts that fall. But this is the famous stairs of Libreria Lelo, which is considered as the world's most beautiful bookshop, or at least self-branded as such. It's a gorgeous place, and so I got this as a souvenir. And then here we have a few books that have a no date tag, because those were my parents' books. Those two are my mother's, and I want to read them and then return them to her because those are her books. But I don't remember when I got them, and those are from my father. And so I didn't really know how to give them an acquisition date, so I just put them in their own little section. So on the 2024 shelf, this was a gift from my husband. For New Year's every year, we kind of borrow the book flood tradition from Iceland, and we use that as our New Year tradition. So we usually cook a nice meal for the two of us, and then we gift each other a book and then spend the rest of the evening reading and eating chocolates. It's the best. I love this tradition so much. We've been doing it for a few years now, and so in 2024, this is the book that my husband gave me for our New Year's book flood. Then we have this little edition of The Phantom of the Opera. This is also a souvenir from Libreria Lelo. It's a gorgeous special edition. Okay, moving on to the next shelf, and I have to bend a little bit. This is a book nook that my husband gave me for Christmas a few years ago, and I think it's really cute. This book is a book I got while I was working in HR, and it sounds so good. Like, I was working on DEI initiatives, or including a DEI angle to everything we were doing, especially recruitment. So it's a topic that's super dear to my heart that I find fascinating. And so I still, even though I don't work for that organization anymore, I'm still very keen to read that book. Those two books I got in an international bookshop in Calpe, Spain. So my husband's grandmother used to have an apartment there, and so we went together on vacation there for a couple of years. And they had this amazing bookshop, but sadly it closed, and so they had a sale getting rid of the end of their stock. So I got those books for a very good price, but I'm sad, so sad that the bookshop closed. This is a book I got in Venice. This is a bilingual edition of some local kind of fairy tales and folk tales. I kind of collect those folk tales. I still need to do a better job of reading them, but I think it's really cool. It's a nice way to learn about the local culture, and yeah, I think it can spark also your imagination, and as a writer could be a fun source of inspiration among other things. So, and I also love like bilingual books. I would love to learn Italian at some point. I had a bit of a goal for it in 2025, but the year was too chaotic for me to be able to do that seriously. So I have this one on my shelf and I'm very excited about it. Speaking of fairy tale books, this one is a more local one to me. This is from a region next to where I live, and it also looks really nice. Has some illustrations. And then here we have a few feminist books, and yeah, I don't think I have much more to say about this shelf. Okay, dropping down further, I forgot to mention that this whole shelf are books from 2023, so books that I purchased in 2023, and I still have quite a few of them, so I need to do a better job about reading those older books. And then from now on, like, you have several years on the shelf. So from here to here, you have 2022, and then here to here, 2021. This book I got in London during a trip with a very good friend of mine. I bought this in Dawn Books, which is one of the prettiest bookshops in London. This is a memoir about Saramus who moved to Iceland. So it sounds really good, and I don't know why I still haven't read it because I really want to. Here we have a few more books about DEI, psychological safety, disability. Again, that's when I was working in recruitment and HR and was educating myself on all of those topics. So you can see that reflected in my personal library as well, like the topics tied to specific times of my life. This is a book I got in a library sale in the previous place where I lived in La Rochelle. So I only have one left, so I did a good job at reading the books that I purchased there, because I remember coming home with like a whole pile of books because they were like €1 or something. So they were so cheap and there was such a good selection that I had a whole pile. So I'm quite happy that I actually did a good job of reading them. This collection of books from the publisher that's called Zone, I love them. I think the books are very beautiful, very pretty, and also the essays are usually very good quality. This one is about witches. It's been translated into English. I think it did very well and was quite popular. I haven't read that one yet, but I read 2 others from her and really enjoyed them. She is a journalist, and I think she's also a very good writer. I really appreciate her work, and in general, again, I do really enjoy this collection of non-fiction books. Moving on to 2020, and now the amount of books per year is dwindling down a little bit, thank God. So in 2020, I have very little fiction. I only have this little book, which is a kind of companion to his Dark Material series. I love that series so much, and so I wanted more content from this world, and so I got all the extra books. There's another one called Lyra in Oxford, which is like a kind of short story. I didn't enjoy it that much, so I didn't keep the book, but I still have to read this one. It's really pretty with like extra materials and illustration and all of that, so I hope I enjoy it more. But other than that, for 2020, you have very little fiction. You have Angela Carter's fairy tales and then a French novel. Otherwise, it's a lot of non-fiction, things about rationality and thinking, which I was very much into at the time. 2019, I only have 3 books from that year, so maybe I should try to prioritize it and finish that year. 2018, you will see again some books about rationality, a lot of books about animals, how animal thinks, Animal Liberation by Peter Singer, which is kind of a classic at this point in animal advocacy kind of philosophy. So this was the time when I was quite active in the effective altruism community, which is basically a group of people thinking that we should use rationality and evidence to find ways to make the most good in the world. And so I was getting a bunch of books on that topic, and I was very much also involved in the animal advocacy sphere. So that's very much reflected on my bookshelf. 2016 is pretty similar, one book kind of about rationality, and then Carol J. Adams' book on the sexual politics of meat, so very much similar topics. And then moving on to the last shelf, this was my favorite plushie when I was a kid, and you can tell because she is filthy. She's very grey from all the hugs and cuddles that I gave her, but I'm also a bit too nervous to put her in the washing machine, so I might need to find another way to clean her up a little bit, but I adored her. Then we have this beautiful edition of Walden by Henry David Thoreau, and funnily enough, my kind of year's word theme and kind of goals, like how I thought about the things that I wanted to accomplish this year in 2026, were very much inspired by a quote from Thoreau, so I might speak a bit more about that in another video. Some more books about kind of myth and fairy tales and kind of the core stories that some culture holds. So this one is about Sweden. This one is about what people will know under the name of Lapland, but in Sweden you would call it Sapmi, which is the name that the Aboriginal people give their own land. And usually if you call someone a Lap, so a Lapland inhabitant, that's an insult. So something to know. And then this one about ghosts in Japan. Like, I also was obsessed with Japan. I studied Japanese a little bit and I went there a couple of times. I love Japan so much and I want to go back, but I'm a bit scared to see how much popular it's gotten in the past couple of years and how crowded it is. So yeah, I don't know how it will be next time I go. This book I talked about in my 2026 video. This book is quite fun. This is about scientists in Hollywood and how they are depicted in the film industry. I really want to read the full book. I actually translated one of the essays in this book for a cultural studies magazine many years ago. And it was so interesting. It was so much fun. So I still have to read the whole book. Oh, actually this book should go on another shelf because it's about translation. So I will move it to my translation kind of little stack, although there's not much room there actually, so I might keep it here. Just don't say anything. This book, I'm still to read this. This is The Dolphin in the Mirror by Diana Reiss. This is a book about the kind of mirror test and how Dolphin passed that mirror test. This is very much a testament of a version of me who, since I was very young, dreamed of studying marine mammals. So yeah, I was obsessed with dolphins and whales. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a, bébé? I know. Sneaking in. Next, those 3 books are also remnants of my time in cultural studies. So I do have 2 books about tattoos, and I do have quite a few tattoos myself. I love tattoo as an art and as a way of self-expression, and so I was also curious to kind of learn more about tattoos from a sociological and cultural studies point of view. So I have those books about that, and then an introduction to gender studies as well, which I read partially, but I would like to read the whole thing. This is a book I bought when I was living in Australia, and I'm still to read it. I've read A Walk in the Wood by Bill Bryson earlier this year, which I thought was fine, but didn't blow me away as much as I thought it would, because I've heard so many good things about this author, so I was having very, very high expectations, but I would still be keen to read about Australia. Then this little book, I think I got when I was working in publishing. So I worked for one of the biggest publishing houses in France for a while, and when I was working in the office, you had books everywhere, like in the staircases, and then once a month you could go into a special room and just get all the books that you could carry. So it was kind of incredible to have access to those many books, but also very dangerous, but because then my shelves were overflowing. And so I think this one is a remnant of that time. I actually have another one, which is this one. This is actually like an Advent copy. This is the author of The Elegance of the Hedgehog, which is one of my favorites of all time. And so you can see that like there is this stamp that says that the book will be published in March 2015, and this is a copy that's not for sale. And so that's also something I got when I was working in publishing. And then the last 2 books. This one I still want to read. I remember working on extracts from this book when I was in high school, and I was writing a paper about cloning. Like, we had to do those kind of group projects in high school and kind of mix different disciplines. And so I was doing a science A level, and so we were supposed to mix maybe like biology and physics or something. And being the person that I am and not doing things like everyone else, I wanted to mix biology with philosophy. So I did a project on cloning and mixed biology and philosophy using this book as one of my reference. This is the responsibility principle, something like that, I think would be the title in English. And so this book stuck in my brain from that time, and I still am to read it. And then the last book, I don't know if it's the oldest, because for this time, honestly, things are a bit blurry, so it's kind of a rough estimate. But this is Johnny Cash's autobiography. I love Johnny Cash's music since I watched the movie Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon. I love the movie, love the music, and I've been listening to Johnny Cash since then. So I would love to read the autobiography as well. All right, friends, I'm a bit out of breath from going up and down and looking at all those books. I hope you enjoyed this reorganization / bookshelf tour video. In the comments, leave me an animal emoji representing your favorite plushie when you were a kid, because there are quite a few plushes on my shelves, including some from my childhood. So I would love to know which one was your favorite when you were a kid. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.